Have you ever said something you instantly regretted, not because it wasn't true, but because it gave away too much? In a world that rewards noise, few realize this. Silence is strength. Most men believe speaking their minds at all times shows authenticity. But here's the Stoic truth. Power isn't in full exposure, it's in strategic restraint. Marcus Aurelius knew it well. Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. This video dives deep into Stoic lessons that reveal why holding back isn't weakness, it's self-mastery. You'll discover how to speak with intention, protect your inner world, and avoid self-sabotage through overexposure. This is not about suppression, it's about choosing clarity over chaos. If you've ever felt unheard, misunderstood, or betrayed after opening up too much, you're not alone. Many strong men face this. But the answer isn't to speak louder, it's to speak wiser. Through timeless Stoic wisdom, we'll explore why not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, how validation is a weak foundation, and how to build quiet confidence that commands respect. So stay with us, because in the next 30 minutes, you'll learn how to guard your thoughts, use your words like tools, and transform silence into power. Like this video, subscribe for more Stoic insights, and share it with a man who needs this message. Your silence might be the loudest message you ever send. One speaking without purpose is a trap. You don't need to look far to see it. Boardrooms, dinner tables, online threads, filled with men speaking just to fill silence, to assert dominance, or to chase some illusion of relevance. Words thrown like darts in the dark, hoping one lands, rarely asking, what am I really trying to say and why? We've been conditioned to believe that expression equals strength, that speaking up, no matter what, proves confidence. But the truth is far sharper and far quieter. Real strength, the kind that lasts, comes from not needing to prove yourself with every word. Stoic philosophy makes this distinction clear. Speaking without purpose is not authenticity, it's leakage. A man who talks without clarity loses more than respect. He loses control. Imagine your voice like a weapon, a sharpened blade. If you swing it wildly, recklessly, you dull its edge. You expose your intent. You exhaust your presence. But if you sheath it until the right moment, its value multiplies. Purpose gives power. Seneca once wrote that excessive talking is a sign of internal chaos. The Stoics believed your words should pass through 3 gates before they leave your lips. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it aligned with virtue? Most men never stop to ask even one. You may have found yourself in a room where someone dominates every conversation, but no one listens. Because they've diluted their presence. They speak not to connect, but to be noticed. They've confused sound with influence, and eventually people stop hearing them. Now shift the picture. A man who listens first, who waits, who speaks with deliberate precision. When he opens his mouth, the room stills. Not because he demands attention, but because he's earned it. That's Stoic communication. That's authority. In your own life, this shift is subtle but radical. Before you speak, especially in moments of tension, ask yourself, am I speaking to clarify or just to respond? Am I here to impress or to serve? You'll be surprised how often silence is the right answer. Not because you're afraid, but because you're composed. This doesn't mean you never speak your mind. It means you speak with discipline, with intention, with an understanding that your voice is a tool, not a toy. Think of a blacksmith who doesn't strike the iron until it's red hot. He waits, he watches. Then, with one clean motion, he shapes. That's how you should use your words, not to fill space, but to build something that holds weight. Next time you're tempted to jump into a conversation, especially when emotions are high, pause. Breathe. Let the impulse pass through you like wind. When the moment is right, speak not to be heard, but to be understood. That difference defines the man who leads from the inside out. 2. Control your voice. Don't let it control you. There's a moment, sharp, short, and invisible to most, right before we speak. In that fraction of a second, a man either chooses to lead or to leak. He either commands his voice like a blade drawn with purpose, or he lets it lash out like a whip without a hand to hold it. And once it's out, it can't be taken back. We've all been there. Words spilled in anger, truths shared too soon, confessions made to the wrong person. Not because the thought was wrong, but because the timing was. The room wasn't ready, the person wasn't worthy, Or worse, we weren't in control. That's the danger of letting your voice lead you instead of the other way around. Stoicism doesn't tell you to stay silent forever. It tells you to speak only when you're ready to own the outcome. Epictetus taught, if something is within your control, master it, and your speech is the first battlefield. A man who cannot pause before speaking isn't free. He's chained to his impulses. Think of your voice as the key to your personal gate. Open it at the wrong moment, and anyone can walk in. Judgment, manipulation, misunderstanding. But when you wait, assess, and choose to speak with intent, you control what enters and what stays out. That's emotional discipline, not repression. Imagine a sniper in a war zone. He doesn't fire with panic. He waits, he breathes, he sees clearly. And when he pulls the trigger, it's not a reaction, it's precision. That's how a man should speak, not out of fear, but with calm, quiet force. Before you share something personal, especially when emotions run high, stop. Ask yourself, is this person emotionally safe? Is this the right moment? Am I trying to connect or just escape the discomfort of holding it in? You'll be amazed at how many moments lose their urgency once you breathe through them. This isn't about being distant. It's about owning your emotional terrain. When you speak without choosing, you give away your coordinates. You allow others to define your narrative. But when you speak with care, with clarity, you remain sovereign. You don't silence yourself, you strengthen your signal. The next time your gut tells you to speak your mind, especially in moments of tension, notice it, but don't obey it instantly. Let that urge pass like a storm. If it still matters tomorrow, speak then. If not, you've saved yourself a mistake disguised as urgency. The more you control your voice, the more power your words will hold. And in a world full of men who speak to be seen, you'll stand apart. Not because you shouted, but because when you did speak, it mattered. That's the kind of man Stoicism shapes. Not loud, not empty, but deliberate. A man whose words are fewer and therefore worth more. 3. Not everyone deserves your inner world. Every man carries a vault inside, a place where fears, dreams, doubts, and memories are kept, not because they're shameful, but because sacred. Yet most give out the key too easily. One drink, one emotional spike, one need for connection, and it spills out. Confessions laid bare to people who never earned that access. The silence that once gave us dignity is traded for a moment of relief. But relief is fleeting. What remains is exposure, and exposure without discernment is erosion of power. We're told that vulnerability builds connection. That being an open book is brave. But here's the problem. Not everyone reads to understand. Some flip through to judge, to manipulate, or to feed their own emptiness. That's not a connection. That's consumption. And if you offer your soul like a public display, don't be surprised when it gets treated like scenery. Stoicism urges restraint, not because truth should be hidden, but because truth should be honored. Seneca said a part of the soul should always remain untouched by others. It's not secrecy, it's sovereignty. A man who reveals everything dilutes his essence. He becomes accessible, predictable, and controllable. But the man who holds part of himself back, not out of fear, but out of strength, commands gravity without needing volume. Picture this. A king doesn't open every chamber of his castle to every guest. Some halls remain closed, not because there's something to hide, but because some spaces require reverence. Your inner world is no different. When you let someone in too fast, you allow them to define your meaning before you do. When you speak your struggles without wisdom, you risk turning a moment of truth into someone else's gossip. There's a cost to oversharing. The more you reveal, the more you depend on others' reactions to feel seen. And once that pattern starts, you trade emotional discipline for emotional gambling, always hoping the next listener will finally get it, finally care, finally hold it with respect. But that's not power. That's needed. Instead, build selective intimacy. Speak when the moment, the place, and the person are right, not out of fear of being misunderstood, but from a decision to guard what's sacred. Before you open up, ask, does this person earn trust through silence? Have they shown they can hold without dropping? If not, let the thought pass. Write it. Reflect on it. But don't give it away. You're not cold for keeping things to yourself. You're not broken for needing space. You're building your own emotional fortress, not to lock people out, Not to lock people out, but to filter who gets to come in, and when the right person arrives, they'll feel it. Not through how much you say, but through how much you don't need to say. In that quiet, you won't feel empty. You'll feel full, with clarity, with control, and with self-respect earned in silence. 4. Prudence is the guardian of relationships. Some words feel right in the moment, but echo with regret long after. You say it, and the silence that follows doesn't bring peace. It brings damage. That's what happens when you trade precision for impulse. In a heated conversation, at the edge of frustration or fear, the desire to be honest can disguise itself as emotional courage. But when honesty lacks prudence, it's not strength. It's a weapon pointed at everything you value. We're told that speaking your truth is always right. But the Stoics would challenge that. They didn't see truth as something that had to be shouted to be real. They saw it as something that had to be rightly placed. Like a blade, sharp, powerful, but only effective when wielded with discipline. Say the right thing at the wrong time, and you don't fix, you fracture. Think about the conversations that changed the trajectory of a relationship. One word, too soon, too sharp, too selfish, and trust dissolves like paper and fire. Stoicism doesn't tell you to hide your feelings. It tells you to wait for the moment when your words serve harmony, not your ego. Now imagine a man walking through a minefield blindfolded. That's what unfiltered speech feels like in intimate relationships. Every step, every sentence could blow something apart. But a man who walks with intention, who waits, listens, scans, becomes the one who not only crosses safely, but leads others through. That's what prudence looks like in speech. Not silence out of fear, but timing rooted in care. Before you share that critique, that truth, ask, is this person open to hearing it? Is this the moment they can receive it without being harmed by it? Am I speaking to help or to win? In a world obsessed with quick opinions, fast responses, and instant expression, the man who pauses, who lets his words age before releasing them, becomes rare. And rare things carry weight. This isn't about filtering yourself to please people. It's about understanding that your voice has an impact, that once spoken, words ripple. Some plant seeds of connection, others poison the soil. The Stoic doesn't speak to unload, he speaks to align. His words are chosen not just for truth, but for timing, tone, and consequence. Next time you're tempted to speak from frustration, stop. Look into the moment. Is this the battlefield where you want to drop your truth? Or can it wait until the fog clears and both sides can actually hear each other? When you master this, the urge to release versus the choice to build, you don't lose your voice. You gain command over it. Let your words be like a bridge, solid, intentional, built to carry weight. Because relationships once cracked by reckless words don't always get rebuilt. Speak like a man who values what he's building more than what he's proving. Speak like a Stoic. 5. Speak to connect, not to impress. There's a quiet kind of strength in a man who doesn't need to prove himself with every word. You've seen him, not loud, not flashy, but undeniable. When he speaks, it lands. When he's silent, it still carries weight. Why? Because he speaks to connect, not to impress. In today's world, most men talk like salesmen, always pitching themselves, trying to sound smarter, deeper, better, filling the room with words not to build bridges, but to build an image. The voice becomes a mirror, not a message. But when speech is driven by ego, connection dies. People listen to respond, not to understand. And every sentence becomes a performance rather than a presence. Stoicism offers a counterpunch. Speak when the words align with your purpose, not your pride. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, don't waste what remains of your life in guessing what others think. And yet, that's what we do when we speak to impress. We guess, we perform, we chase approval. Imagine your words like arrows. Fired wildly, they might hit something, but rarely what matters. But when drawn with aim, with stillness, they strike the target. Speaking to connect means aiming for understanding, not applause. It's quiet, it's slow, and it's real. You can feel the difference. A man walks into a conversation with the intent to be admired. His words are laced with I, heavy with pretense, light on truth. But another man walks in to understand, to hear, to engage. And when he speaks, people listen longer. Because he's not performing, he's present. This shift doesn't require changing what you say, but why you say it. Before speaking, ask, is this for clarity or for attention? Do I want them to feel heard, or do I want to be heard louder? Most noise comes from a fear of being overlooked. But when you're grounded in who you are, silence never means invisibility. It means control. You don't have to fill the space to hold the room. You don't have to impress to be impactful. The man who speaks less but means more, that's the man others respect. Not because he demands it, but because he doesn't need to. His words carry weight because they weren't thrown, they were earned. So next time you're about to speak, especially in a group, check your aim. Are you sharing to build trust or to build ego? Speak like you're planting seeds, not like you're setting off fireworks. The flash fades, but a root, if planted well, grows quietly beneath the surface. Speak like a man who doesn't need a stage. Speak like a man who listens first, then answers with thought, not noise. Speak to connect, and let the strength of that connection speak louder than anything your voice could ever perform. 6. Real growth happens quietly. Not every change needs a witness. Not every step needs applause. The most powerful transformations happen in silence, long before anyone notices. In a culture obsessed with sharing the journey, it's become easy to confuse attention with progress. But when the world is watching, the performance begins. And when you start performing your growth, you stop living it. There's something sacred about a man who works quietly. No hashtags, no speeches, just repetition, just clarity, just movement in the dark toward something only he can see. That's real growth. Not the kind measured by compliments or followers, but the kind measured by how much more control he holds over himself today than yesterday. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus didn't seek praise for his discipline, he lived it. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but still journaled in private, writing not to be remembered, but to remember who he was. Growth to the Stoic was never a performance. It was private warfare, a daily choice between impulse and intention. Think of a tree growing in winter. No fruit, no leaves, no spectacle, but beneath the frozen surface, its roots dig deeper. The foundation strengthens while the world sees nothing. Then one day, it breaks through, steady, grounded, undeniable. That's how you grow. Not in bursts, not in noise, but through repetition when no one's watching. The danger comes when you speak too soon. You announce the new diet, the new routine, the new mindset, and with it comes the weight of expectation. Eyes watching, doubts forming, pressure building, and slowly the process becomes a stage, not a path. You end up proving instead of improving. A man anchored in Stoic habit doesn't need external validation to keep going. He moves because movement itself is the victory. He doesn't announce his transformation, he embodies it. And when others finally see the change, it's already been real for a long time. The applause comes after the work, not during. So before you post that next life update or make a declaration about who you're becoming, stop. Ask yourself, am I doing this for the result or for the recognition? Growth is a sacred thing. Treat it that way. Give it space to breathe, to fail, to rebuild, without judgment, without exposure. When no one sees you grinding, when no one praises your progress, that's where it matters most. Because in that space, you're not acting for anyone. You're becoming someone. Build like a mountain forms. Slow, silent, unstoppable. Let the noise pass above you. Let the results rise within you. And when the time is right, the world won't need your announcement. They'll see it in how you walk, in how you speak, in how you don't need to explain. Growth that lasts is quiet, and that's why it's strong. 7. Protect your emotional privacy. Some men carry their pain like a badge. They wear it loud, hoping someone sees it, understands it, and validates it. They talk about every betrayal, every struggle, every scar, not always because they're healing, but because they're hoping someone else will do the healing for them. But when your emotions become public property, they lose their weight. And when you expose your inner world to the wrong eyes, it stops being sacred. It becomes vulnerable in the worst way. There's a difference between being honest and being exposed, between sharing and spilling. What many call openness is often a disguise for unfiltered emotional dumping. And in the end, it doesn't liberate, it weakens. Because not everyone listens to understand. Some listen to exploit, to compare, to judge. And when your internal world is constantly on display, you give away your leverage. You give others the power to define what they never earned the right to touch. Stoicism isn't about shutting down. It's about guarding the temple. Seneca wrote that a part of the soul must remain untouched, unshared, held like a sacred chamber no one enters without permission. That's not cold. That's sovereignty. A man who respects his emotions doesn't broadcast them. He protects them, and he learns to process them without turning them into content for casual conversation. Imagine your emotional world like a well, deep, silent, life-giving. But if you let everyone drop their hands into it, pollute it with opinions and projections, it dries up, or worse, it becomes poisoned. But if you guard it, tend to it, visit it alone when needed, it becomes a source of strength, steady, quiet, resilient. We live in a time where being real is often just being reckless. A man vents online hoping for a connection, but what he gets is likes, shallow sympathy, and eventually silence. The void returns stronger. Because healing doesn't happen through exposure. It happens through emotional discipline, the decision to sit with your pain, your confusion, your joy, until you understand it before you explain it. Before you tell your story, ask, why am I saying this? What am I hoping to gain? Has this person earned the depth I'm about to offer? If you can't answer with clarity, stay silent, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. There's dignity in restraint. There's power in choosing when and how to share. So the next time you feel the urge to let it out, pause. Write it in a journal. Take a long walk. Talk to the one or two people who've earned your trust through consistency, not convenience. And in that act, you're not repressing anything, you're reclaiming everything. Privacy isn't distance, it's protection. Silence isn't isolation, it's sovereignty. Let your emotions inform you, not define you. Let your healing be quiet, and your strength be something the world senses, even if it never sees. Because the deepest power is the one no one else can touch. 8. Validation is a weak foundation. A man who lives for approval becomes a stranger to himself. His thoughts shift to fit the room, his words bend to earn a nod, and slowly, without noticing, he trades identity for applause. Validation may feel like fuel, but it burns fast, and when it runs out, you're left standing in the dark with no sense of direction. That's what happens when your worth is outsourced. We've been sold the idea that being seen by others is the highest form of value, that the likes, the compliments, the recognition, even from strangers, somehow confirm who we are. But the Stoics knew better. They warned that the crowd is a dangerous master. It lifts you up when you fit its mood and drops you the moment you deviate. Real power isn't in being liked. It's in being unmoved by the need to be. Picture your self-worth as a building. If every brick is laid by someone else, praise, attention, agreement, then every opinion becomes structural. And when one person withdraws, criticizes, or doubts, your entire foundation shakes. But if you build that structure from within, through discipline, intention, and clarity, then no one outside can collapse what they didn't construct. This doesn't mean you become immune to praise. It means you no longer rely on it to feel steady. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations that praise is no more real than blame. Both are projections. Both are fragile. What matters is your alignment with virtue, with your internal compass. You don't need the world to echo your truth if you've already heard it within yourself. Think of a man standing in a storm. If he's anchored, the wind doesn't move him. But if his sense of self floats on surface approval, the slightest gust knocks him over. That's the cost of chasing validation, instability disguised as strength. Next time you find yourself adjusting your message, your posture, your tone, just to be more agreeable, stop. Ask, is this who I am or who they want me to be? When you speak with integrity, you might lose applause, but you gain clarity. And clarity is freedom. You stop checking reactions, you stop scanning faces. You speak like a man who already knows who he is. That shift is subtle but powerful. You stop performing and start living. You stop seeking hands to lift you and start walking on the ground you built. And over time, you attract people who value truth over charm, depth over performance. Let the world misunderstand you. Let them misjudge your silence, your choices, your stance. That's not your burden. What matters is that when you look in the mirror, there's alignment. Your voice matches your values. Your thoughts don't need an audience to feel real. Because when validation is no longer the goal, sovereignty becomes the reward. And no one can take that from you. There is a rare kind of strength in restraint. In a world that rewards noise, silence becomes your signal. Through the lens of Stoic philosophy, we've seen that not every thought deserves to be spoken. Not every truth needs to be shared, and not every emotion should be displayed. Real wisdom is knowing when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. You've now explored how speaking without purpose is a trap, how control over your voice grants freedom, and how protecting your inner world is a form of quiet power. You've learned that Stoic communication is not about suppression, but about precision, that emotional discipline is not weakness, but a sign of mastery, and that real growth, the kind that lasts, often happens in silence, away from the crowd, without the need for validation. Let this be your reminder. You don't need to reveal everything you're thinking to be authentic. You only need to align your words with your purpose. Speak with intention, not impulse. Hold back not out of fear, but out of clarity. And remember, this is a practice, a daily choice. You won't get it right every time, and that's fine. What matters is that you keep refining, keep watching your thoughts, keep training your voice to be a tool, not a reflex. Now I invite you to reflect. Which moment in this video resonated most with you? Have you ever said too much and wished you hadn't? Or have you stayed silent and realized later that your silence spoke louder? Share your story below. Your experience might be the one reminder another man needs today. Speak less, but when you do, let it echo with power. That's Stoic strength in action.